So I'm here with Rabbi Adam from the Masorati Synagogue here in St Albans. And Adam, it's lovely to have you on Radio Verulam. And Passover has just started. Could you just explain to us very briefly what actually is Passover?
Absolutely. Passover is one of the biggest festivals of the Jewish year. It's probably the largest home-based holiday, and that's especially the case this year. It celebrates the Exodus from Egypt. And the story of the Exodus we read about in the book of Exodus becomes transformed into a drama in which we reenact during Passover, when we both refrain from eating leavened bread and other products similar, and we have a kind of bizarre, overly organized festive meal in which we tell the story and ask questions and debate and discuss, which is the typically Jewish way to deal with any aspect of our history.
Excellent. Always important to have a meal and have focus around the meal. And so does it involve symbolic foods then as well?
More than any other. There's a huge array of symbolic foods, and particularly they're organized onto a plate called a Seder plate. The Seder is the meal that we have on Passover evening. And, you know, each of them have a correlation to some part of the story. So we dip green vegetables into salt water, and it's meant to be a reminder of the tears, quite dramatically, the tears of our ancestors who were enslaved in Egypt. And all of it is this kind of somewhat campy and somewhat kind of extreme way of getting us to think about what it would have been like to be enslaved.
Right. And as I say, so it's about very much getting together and reflecting on the past, on the ancestors of the faith. How is that being affected by what is happening in our society with social distancing this year?
Well, it's huge, really, because more than most holidays, Passover is a time when Jewish people gather together at home. And, you know, like Christmas is for many Christians, Passover is a time when kids will come home, you know, with their families and visit their parents, and lots of people will gather together in the family home and have this big meal. And that's not possible anymore. So for this year, you know, the guidance is, of course, that everyone should have their own Passover Seder in their own homes. Right. And for many people, that's a really new thing. They're not used to doing it themselves. They're used to relying on someone who in their family who's used to running it and someone else who's used to cooking it. And for a lot of people, this is maybe the first year that they're teaching themselves both how to run the Seder and how to prepare for Passover.
Right. Okay. So very much a learning process in some ways for a lot of the Jewish community then.
Absolutely. It's not usually thought of as an individual holiday. It's very much a family community one. I mean, we, at our community at the Masorati Synagogue here in St Albans, we usually have a community Seder of 120 people. And obviously we can't do that this year. No. We're trying to do it over Zoom, but it's not the same.
That's very sad indeed. So are you actually leading things? I mean, I know a lot of the churches and other faith groups are using social media and streaming and different things like that. Is that something that you've looked at as well?
To an extent, yeah. We have used quite a bit of the technology available for our kind of regular weekly activities, teaching and whatever. But actually, one of the huge limitations in Judaism is that we don't use technology on holidays.
Right, of course.
So during the course of Passover, at least for the first 2 days, most people will actually turn off their phones, computers. You know, traditionally they won't drive. They'll really observe those kind of restrictions that you think of in relation to Shabbat, which we do every week. Yeah. And that means that for a lot of people, you know, there won't be the opportunity to connect digitally. And as a community, we're not holding a digital Zoom Seder on Passover itself. Instead, we're doing it a couple days later and having it be a kind of compensatory gesture.
Right, of course. Yes, of course. That does make a lot of sense about the Shabbat being a day of rest and then linking that to the festivals as well. So that does make a lot of sense indeed. Nobody knows when the social distancing will actually come to an end, and churches and synagogues and mosques will be able to reopen. But as I say, when that does happen, whereabouts is the Masorati Synagogue if people from, say, the Jewish community haven't been there before but would like to go and explore? Whereabouts is it?
Yeah, it's not somewhere that you'd walk by generally and notice. It's in an industrial estate here in St Albans in Campfield Road. And it's unfortunately part of the consideration for the anonymity is that we have to think a lot about security. So would definitely encourage anyone who's curious to visit, Jewish or not, to do so. But please do let us know beforehand, as we do have to make sure that we are aware of any visitors coming by. And you see in that reflection a real sad truth about Jewish life today, which is we'd love to be like our neighbors, the churches nearby, who have their doors wide open and welcome everyone in. But unfortunately, we have to think much more about how it is that our physical space is presented to the community. So it's a bit funny that many people probably walk past our synagogue all the time and have no idea.
Yes, indeed, very much so. Yes, as I say, I suppose that is one of the ways that perhaps places of worship are evolving and changing, and society is changing really in some ways. Adam, before we let you go, is it possible you could just share a thought for the Jewish community and for all of us here in St Albans for this time of Passover, please?
Well, something I've been certainly thinking about a lot in terms of Passover is that the whole festival is thinking about what it means to be free. And, it's an open question. Freedom is not necessarily something which we understand well. And often it's the difference between freedom from something versus freedom to something. And for us to observe Passover, to think about being free and remembering what it meant to be enslaved, to be confined, to be isolated. It's a bit of a funny paradox this year, and for many of us, we are isolated. But there's an important distinction to be made, I think, between self-isolation, which is a word that we're so used to now we've lost any meaning of, versus isolation being imposed from outside. I think we can take a lot of pride in the free choice we have to be able to protect ourselves and others through isolation, and understanding the distinction between that and the kind of confinement that we're remembering during Passover is really important. Because although it feels the same in some way, not being able to leave our homes, being scared about what's going on in the world outside, there's a huge difference between us having the choice to do the right thing versus remembering the experience of slavery.
Adam, thank you ever so much, and I hope you and all your community have a great Passover. Thank you.
Thank you.